165 of New Zealand's biggest gap year, an epic challenge that Laura and I decided to tackle a couple of years ago. We had to do 365 activities in 365 days all around New Zealand. Now today we're going to be checking out the Croydon Aviation Heritage Centre with heaps of vintage airplanes. And check out with me at the end of the video when I'm going to go over the comments that you had the first time we published it. Doesn't look like we're going to be flying. The weather is not great. We're going to have to find ourselves another museum. So you guys got it. We were supposed to fly in a vintage aircraft today, but the weather is not permitting, so we are heading to the same place we were supposed to go, the Croydon Aviation Company, and there we're going to be visiting their museum instead. They have heaps of aircraft here. And the reason why this Aviation Heritage Museum is located here in Manderville is because Manderville was the only place in the entire Gore district that during the Prohibition era was still providing alcohol to people. So people used to take the train and fly here, booze up, and then fly or train their way back home. And we did learn all about that yesterday when we did visit the Hokonui Moonshine Museum, and you can check that out on the previous video on our YouTube channel. And to further convince you guys that flying is super important in New Zealand and is a huge part of the New Zealand history, it is actually said that the first ever flight was done in New Zealand. Richard William Pearce flew and landed an aircraft on the 31st of March 1903, 9 months before the Wright brothers in the US. But there is not enough documented evidence of that very fact for it to be well known worldwide. We learned that fact and more with Rose, which is taking us all around the aviation center and telling us a story about each and every single plane that we're seeing.
The first plane that really grabs our attention is the Tiger Moth, mainly because this is the plane that we were meant to be doing a flight in today. It does regular flights and it actually used to deliver mail to rural areas in New Zealand. And the really weird thing about this plane is that passengers actually sit up front while the pilot sits behind. What really alarms us though when we look inside at the control panels of the planes is the fact that there's barely any controls in these planes. It's just an example of how far technology has come. What's really interesting about the planes in this aviation center is the fact that almost all of them can still fly. And the next plane that we're looking at is the Domini, which is the original passenger aircraft in New Zealand. And probably the most striking fact is the fact that this plane has a zipper so that mechanics can quickly access the engine. I can't believe that planes were literally put together with a zip. This is a long way from the modern army jets, which we also can see in the museum as well.
And the reason why Rose has a story about each and every single plane that we're seeing is because she actually personally knows every single one of the owner. A lot of the planes are owned by one man, which gave most of his collection to the museum, but quite a few other of the planes are owned by private collectors that are actually just storing their plane right here. They trust the Heritage Center to maintain, take care of their planes and make sure that when they're ready to fly, they can just show up there and fly their own planes. So when you guys are going to come to visit it, you may not see every single one of those planes because some of them may literally be flying as we speak. One of the planes that I'm really stoked to see right here in this museum is one of the early sightseeing planes that used to fly around Mount Cook, because Laura and I have in the plans to fly above Mount Cook, and we are both wishing that we're gonna get a plane with at least a closed window so we don't freeze our balls while flying above New Zealand's tallest mountain.
We also can't help but notice the fancy looking steam train outside of the museum, which was actually fished out of the river and restored. And then we head to the workshop.
So we just got invited to visit the actual workshop where they repair planes from all around the world. So around us are a ton of aircraft parts that are currently being repaired, restored, rebuilt by a team of passionate guys. It's pretty incredible to see all those vintage aircrafts.
It's really awesome to see such an unusual part of the New Zealand history. It's really not what we expected to be doing on our gap year in New Zealand, but it has given us some amazing insights, and it's such an awesome way to end our time in Gore. So tomorrow we are leaving the Gore district and heading to the next section of our Southland adventure, which is the Catlins. The Catlins is known for its forest parks, its rugged coast, and more importantly, in my eyes, its wildlife. So join us tomorrow where we start our Catlins adventure.
Alright guys, so as you can see, a lot of historical artifact in this museum and heaps to learn as well. So it was a perfect way to spend a rainy day in New Zealand, although flying in some of those old planes would have been even more fun. Alright, so some of the comments that you guys had the first time we published it, we had Bozo that said, I noticed that you guys always have a tour guide, so it would be nice if we can hear them speak and explaining some stuff. I know this, the audio problem, but still. Yes, so one of the choices that we made when we first edited those videos and everything is that we chose to kind of remove a lot of the audio if it wasn't sounding good enough. And sadly, that means that we had to remove a lot of the what the guides were saying. Also, a lot of them actually told us that they were not comfortable being speaking on camera. So they say, it's okay, you can film me, but I don't want to be like, you know, I don't want the audio and everything like that. So it's kind of like just, you know, photos, style, filming is fine. We also had Nick Laces that says, please do more aviation content. Well, be aware, Nick, there is also the Omaka Aviation Center coming up at some point during this New Zealand's biggest gap year, and you'll be able to see even more airplanes in some epic kind of sceneries and everything, so make sure to check this one out as well. Alright, so that's basically it for all the comments that we had on this video. Not super popular video as well, you know, this part of New Zealand is very underrated, but don't fret, we still cover this part of New Zealand in videos and on New Zealand largest travel guide, which is nzpocketguide.com, and you know, it's our large travel guide to New Zealand. You can check it out for free, and there's plenty of guides for this part of New Zealand. Plus, if you want to hang out with us during our live session, we are happy to talk about this unloved part of New Zealand, let's say. And so yeah, we do live session at 8 AM New Zealand time every single Sunday, so join us then. Bye bye.